Hello everyone, welcome to my escape. Today we're going to do my February wrap-up, but we're also going to make a cake. A carrot cake. Okay, I love carrot cake. I did a baking vlog in December and I hated it. And I think I said I was never going to do it again because I was truly terrible at it because I can't multitask, okay? I can't talk and do the whole film thing and also follow a recipe. Also, I just can't really follow a recipe, period, but that's a different thing. But here we are doing it again because I'm kind of tired of just editing my floating head videos in front of my bookshelf, so you might be tired of watching them. So we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna bake my carrot cake for no reason other than I want carrot cake. And we're gonna talk about all the books I read in February. First, we're gonna preheat the oven because I always forget to do that. Okay, getting into the books, let's hop in here. Oh, this month I read 20 books. That really explains a lot for where I'm at in my life right now and how much work I've had to do the last couple of days. But anyways, for February, I read 20 books. One of them was a thriller, go me. One of them was a fantasy thriller, also go me. And then into our regular genres, I read 2 that were YA fantasy, I read 6 that were fantasy romance, and I read 8 that were contemporary romance. But we had 2 in the thriller genre in 1 month, so really I count that as a win. And then we're just gonna hop into the first book now because I don't want to wash my hands yet, and that is Bunny. I'm so excited to own this book. I came across this on the book platforms, I think in 2022, and I was like, that sounds so cool, like I want to read that, yes, yes, yes. But I didn't want to read it until I physically had it. It was just one of those books, it got in my head. I didn't want it from the library, I wanted to physically read this and then be able to put it on my shelf. I don't know why. But here we are, 2 years later, finally found it used, and it's on my shelf, so we love. In terms of what the book is about, I don't know. Turns out I didn't know what it was going into it, and after reading it, I still don't feel like I have a good grasp of what it was about, which is interesting. That's an interesting, as a reader, that's an interesting experience. With that said, bear with me because I actually loved the confusion. Loved the confusion, okay? I gave this book 4 stars and I don't know what happened in it. I think that tells you something. But my best description of what it is, basically you open and this girl, she's doing her master's in literature or comparative literature, something like that. So she's in this very small seminar class with 4 other girls. It's just them and the prof. And these 4 girls are a little bit odd, as in they call each other Bunny. And like, not Bunny 1, Bunny 2, I mean like, hi Bunny, hi Bunny. Like, just Bunny, all 4 of them, because that's not confusing. That's something you do with your friends. Cool, 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 cool. Anyways, she basically watches these girls and they like hug all the time and they're very touchy-feely and they're very like over the top and all this. And our main girl watches these girls and gives them slightly mean nicknames like Cupcake and stuff like that and just judges them in her head. And she's very pessimistic about them, about life, about really everything. And yeah, then it's just kind of like the story of her falling into this cult. And then some stuff happens and I don't really know like how it happens. You know, the physics of it were never really explained. But it teeters on like the fantasy side, but it's not a fantasy, like it's not written like a fantasy. We're still confused about what went on there. And if you've read this book and know what I'm talking about, please message me. Find me on Instagram, comment, but like add the little spoiler bar and just be like, oh, this is the math behind that, because I'm confused. But anyways, all of this happens and you just follow her along in her journey. Why did I love this book? A, because I was confused. Like I had a good time reading it, and once it was done, I was confused and that didn't actually bother me. In a lot of books that would bother me. For this one, I was okay. I was okay to be confused. And I think it's just because I absolutely attached myself to the main character, which is a god-awful reflection on me. Because again, she falls into a cult and she's very pessimistic. But I tend to stay away from books that are set on university campuses or happen in like academia or anything like that because I live the university life. I don't need to read about it. Okay, thank you. I read to escape. University isn't escaping because that is my life. So I didn't actually know that That was the premise going into it. However, I just, like, this character and I might be the same person, which again is a poor reflection on me. But just like the pessimism, especially towards like the institution, and the fact that like when she gets more in her mind about it, she gets a lot like more negative about viewing everything around her, and like she's not taking criticism all that well. But you know, so there was just like a lot of things, and I think that's what did it for me in this book. So had I read it at like a different point of in time, or if I hadn't gone to university, I don't know if I would attach like as much to this book, and it might have just been like a meh for me. But at this point in my life, it was the perfect moment to pick it up, and yeah, I'm just confused. Like, I don't know what else to say. I enjoyed it. It was 4 stars. I really attached to the main character, and I'm confused about the rest of it. Now we've washed the hands, we can actually start cooking. So then, the next one I have on this list, also kind of sticking with that thriller vibe, but this is like a fantasy thriller, is House of Roots and Ruin. I guess I could move down so you could see what I was doing. But I wish I had House of Roots and Ruin to hold up for you guys, because I want that book on my shelf so bad, but it's not economical at the moment. But trust me, I'm keeping an eye out for it. This was another 4-star read for me, but this one I actually do know what happened in it. That's always fun. This is like YA-esque, except it got a little more than I would like. It wasn't fully spicy, but there were words I was unprepared for in this book. So it is the second in the series, but honestly the first at this point feels more like a prequel, so you could go straight into this one if you wanted to, but I say read the first, which is House of Salt and Sorrows. I say read the first because it's just that good. The first is a 12 Dancing Sisters retelling, but think like Victorian era on the sea, dreary, saltwater, ghosts and madness kind of vibe. This book picks up 13 years later. I always say 13 years later. I don't know. Significantly later, because the youngest sister has now grown up and she's ready to like find her own way in the world. But her one sister, who's like still living with her, won't let her leave. And she's like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then something happens. And then the sister's like, yo, you see ghosts. You can't go anywhere because people will lock you up. And I'm trying to love you as your sister. So you're just staying here. And the girl was like, I don't know if I want to spend my life just kind of chilling with my sister on this island. I really want to make a name for myself and like go and do my own thing. And oh my god, I don't have the arm strength for this. Oh. Anyways, she gets this commission letter from somebody on the other side of the kingdom, ocean, I don't know. I don't really understand the depths of this world, but the other side of somewhere that goes, hey, I saw your art. I would love to commission you to do this portrait of my son. Could you come live with us for like a couple weeks and do this? And she was like, you know what? Bet, let's do it. So yeah, then she goes, you know what, sister? You can't keep me locked up here. Now that I know that I see ghosts, I'll just be more careful about not letting anybody else know. So she goes off. Oh my god, my arm is on fire. So then she goes off and she goes there. And I gotta say, the first 50% of this book is boring, because it's her just kind of figuring out something you already knew from the first book. And then, you know, she's off and she's like, oh my god. At like 50% or 48%, somewhere in there, this book takes a turn and then it's fire all the way through. All the way through. Normally I wouldn't give a book 4 stars if the first half was honestly boring. But that just tells you about how good the last half of this book was, because it saved the whole thing. It was twist after twist after twist. I wouldn't have been able to guess literally any of it. Again, I don't read thrillers, so maybe that wasn't other people's experience. But my friend who does read thrillers also loved this book and was like, this had me, I don't know if I can say by the balls on YouTube, but I guess I just did. She's like, this had me, like had me. And I was like, it was so good. Highly, highly recommend. It's spooky, it's weird. You don't really have like the aspect of like madness in this one that you do in the other one. But, oh, this is really like less paranormal. I mean, there's still like that aspect, like it is still a fantasy, but it's really more just like people being super messed up. So good. So good, so good, so good, so good, so good. And I thought this was going to be like the first when I read it and bought it, I thought it was a standalone. Then I come out and find there's this other book. But you could have read the first like as a standalone, and it is fine as a standalone. Like It's only because I loved the world and the author so much that I'd pick up the second one, but it's not a continuation really of the story in the second one. However, the second book set up for a whole series. A whole series. So I don't know what to do with that information because the next book is not out and I don't even know if it has a set release date yet, but I need it right now because oh, did it leave us on a cliffhanger? Oh, so good. Would highly, highly recommend. If the first part of the book wasn't as like boring and dragged out, would have been a 5-star for me. Would have been a 5-star. But as it was, I can only give it 4, but still check out this whole series. Oh, I love it. This was one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and I'll link that video somewhere, but I was so excited for this book because I read the first one at the end of last year, like towards the end, and loved it that much. And the second book absolutely lived up to it, but in its own right. And oh, that's just so hard to do. It's just so good. So good. I need it on my shelf. I'd love to hold it up for you guys, but again, not on the budget right now. I had to move my camera to get at the little cups, so if it changed, that's why. Now, hopping into fantasy romance. This is honestly probably just a straight fantasy, but that is Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. Look at this edition. I'm obsessed with it. This sticker does come off. I just need a hairdryer to make it happen. Oh, sorry, the lighting isn't great in here, so the camera's having difficulty focusing on it, but I have a book haul coming, so you can see it in that. This might be why Roots and Ruin is not in the budget. But anyways, it is so pretty, and I had to get this edition because the regular edition I think is the ugliest cover I've ever seen. Not to be dramatic, but I truly hate it. So this is the only one I've seen that I've liked so far. So it's the first in the Crescent City series. As you know, I haven't had much luck with Sarah J. Maas in the past. And the first 700 pages of this, or the first 85% roughly, I would say that held. That really did hold. I was so bored. So essentially what this is about is it's an urban fantasy world. So you're set in like regular society, you have smartphones and art auctions and like all like societal things, but you also have fairies and angels and werewolves and all these creatures in one society, in one city. Each set of the city, instead of it being like a regular neighborhood, you are divided into creatures. So like the werewolves have one area of the city, the fae have another area of the city, the humans have an area of the city, etc. You also have a whole thing going on with like wars kind of across the ocean. So it is a bigger world, but we're primarily in this one focused on that city. We follow our main girl. Oh God, did I forget her name? How did I forget her name? I was with her for 800 pages. Bryce. Her name is Bryce. I'm so bad with names. Anyways, you follow our main girl, Bryce, and she is a human/fae kind of mixture, but she has little to no powers, and she loses somebody really important in her life. And then the higher-ups, the little angel-y peeps, go, figure this out. Nah. And she's like, I feel like this is a little bit outside of my, skill set. So they pair her with like a fallen angel, rebel slave guy. That's the whole thing in here. And they have to team up to essentially solve this demonic murder and find out what truly happened the night that she lost this person. Why was it happening? All of that stuff. Honestly, the setup for the book isn't a lot that I love because SJM, not my fave. Whodunit, really couldn't care less. But, Crescent City 3, the third book, came out this year. There was so much hype about it. So I did get a couple reels on my feed that I was like, okay, the reels look good. And one reel was like, this happens in chapter 3. And I was like, I could make it to chapter 3. Okay. Yeah, chapter 3 of the second book. So that reel kind of lied to me, but it's fine. I knew I was going to the States and I knew that I'd seen this copy before and wanted it. So I was like, I should read the book to make sure, it's worth spending the money on. And then it came up on my library. So everything just kind of happened all in one. Picked it up again, 700 pages, bored. So incredibly bored. So incredibly bored. Like I can't express to you, like House of Roots and Ruin. It was boring, but it was still like a story that I was following and it was just kind of vibes, Like I wasn't begrudging my time reading it. But then, that last 15%, and I keep saying 15%, that's not actually, I just pulled that number out of thin air. But like the very end had me in a chokehold, had me bawling ugly tears on my couch, had me losing my mind and my soul and my heart, page after page after page after page after page, till the end of the book. Tell me how, after spending 700 pages with these characters and not caring about a single one, could not have cared about a single character, tell me how then I'm bawling my eyes out to characters that I didn't think I cared about. Tell me how. I don't actually know. That doesn't make any sense to me, and yet here we are. But the ending of the book, phenomenal, ripped my heart out. Ripped it right out. Gone. See ya. I can't remember the last time I cried in a book, and I can't remember sobbing like this since middle school. Like, in a book. Life is a different story, but in a book, so good. So phenomenally good. Why couldn't that have either been dispersed throughout, or why couldn't have this book been like 400 pages less? Okay, yes, it's a dense world. Didn't need to be. Really didn't need to be. But take that how it is. I ended up giving it 4 stars because the ending was just like that. Good. I ended up spending money on it. I don't know if I could in good conscience recommend it because it's 700 pages of blah you have to get through, and I don't know if you have the time for that. So I'm not going to recommend it one way or the other. If you think that's for you, pick it up. If you like Sarah J. Maas, pick it up. That's for you to decide. Those are just my thoughts on it. Okay, back to baking because I don't own the next couple books, so I can use my hands for baking. So the next movie we're going to talk about, I'm kind of going to do all in one-ish because they are a series. So Bow Before the Elf Queen and the second 2 were also on my anticipated reads list, so I'm kind of killing that list. Honestly, I said that in that video as well, and I stand by it. Bow Before the Elf Queen is a fantasy romance about elves, but the elves are very fey. Some books have like a distinct like, we are elves, and some books just seem like they're fey, but you call them elves. But essentially, you follow this one girl, and at birth, every elf is tested to see if they have magic, because magic's basically gone from the land. And she is born, and she's tested, and oh, lo and behold, she has magic. So she's immediately, as a baby, as a couple days old, couple days of breathing, betrothed to the prince of the kingdom. And her parents go, oh, this seems like a red flag. And they take her and they run. So then she grows up in the human realm, knowing she's an elf and knowing everything that has happened, but hiding from the crown. She knows that the prince one day is going to come find her, or the king. So she's training her whole life to assassinate both the king and the prince. So that's fun. So the prince, of course, comes and gets her, and then it's her trying to thwart the kingdom, but also figuring out what has gone on and what is going on. And of course, things are revealed because everything I just told you happens in chapter 1. I have to be so far away from the camera in order for this to work, so this is just awkward for me, but I hope you enjoy my suffering. Book 1, honestly, I went into it with 0 expectations, and I really did enjoy it. Like, it really did surprise me, being like, wow, I need to know what happens next, because the cliffhanger on this one is amazing, is so good. So then that brings us to Long Live the Elf Queen, which is the second in the series. And I wanted to pick this book up immediately after the first, which I almost never do, but I couldn't because, you know, libraries and all of that sort of stuff. So after waiting 6 months, the library finally got it, my hold finally came up. That brought us to February. I was finally able to read it, and I was so excited to get into it. Started it, realized I didn't remember as much as I thought I had from the first one. So I was like, I want the full experience though. So I just went back and I reread the first one. And it still stood up to the test of time. I still really enjoyed it on the second go around, even though I knew everything that was gonna happen. So that's also very telling of a book for me, even though I reread all the time and love knowing what happens. But yeah, so reread the first one, picked up the second one, got even better. And I'm back. So my roommate came home while I was filming, and obviously I'm not gonna stand in the kitchen and film while she's here. So I put everything like on hold, and I was like, oh, like she's heading out again tonight. Like I'll just give it like 15 minutes. And then I realized I forgot to put the eggs in the batter. There are 4 ingredients to a cake from a box, and I messed it up. How? I'm not good in the kitchen. It's really terrible. But anyways, once I realized that, I scraped what I had already doled out back into the bowl and then put it all on the kitchen table. And I said I'd come back to it later, and it is significantly later. Also during this time, I'm pulling up my book stuff again, but also during this time, I had a group project due, which is great, and was completely done, and everyone had signed off that it was done, and I was the one that had to submit, so I went to submit it, and somebody in the group deleted all of our audio on our audio presentation an hour before it was due. So it's been a great night, been super fun, but we're gonna get back into the books because you know what, the books make me happy. And I don't know if cake mix is something you can let sit for forever, but I did it. The egg has been added now. I did that before I packed everything up, but yes, here we go, part 2. I can't believe I messed up cake in a box. I even had the eggs out, but nope. Anyways, where was I? Okay, Long Live the Elf Queen was great. And then we got into Fate Calls the Elf Queen, and thank goodness that I placed the hold for that one at the same time I placed the hold for the second one, because then I got it pretty much right after I was done the second one, so it was perfect timing. And I went into that one, so good. So good. Like, the first 2 were good. The first 2 were 4-star good. The third one was 5-star. Okay, 5-star. The only thing I would say, like, going into it is I thought this was a trilogy, so I was waiting for them to wrap things up, and I was like, you guys are getting too deep. Like, you gotta come out of the story at this point. Like, there's not that much left. And then I found out that it is, in fact, not a trilogy. So there are more books to come. They haven't been published yet. But aside from that, Fate Calls the Elf Queen, so freaking good. And you know what? I looked on Goodreads. Some people really don't like it because it significantly changes from the first 2 books in the series. Significantly. A great deal. The vibe of the book changes, the tone of the book changes, the scope of the book changes. Like, it's really like the author got tired of writing the first series, and just, instead of like starting a new story, she was like, nah, let me just, rename all my characters and keep going. And obviously I can't get into the details of what happens in the third, but I do want to come out with a whole video on these 3 books because it's just too good not to, and I need more people to read them, honestly. They're just, I love them. I'm making such a mess with these cupcakes, and you can't even see it. Oh god. But yeah, essentially the first book, you start and it's like a girl versus a kingdom, and by the time you're at the third, you're into, I don't know what I can say without spoiling, but a lot more. So if that's not your vibe, if you're not really wanting the entire story to change, maybe this series isn't for you. But honestly, I had a blast. I was having so much fun with it. I would recommend. Like, I really, truly, deeply loved the 5th one. Oh, that's full. Kept me on my toes the whole time. And it wasn't as like House of Roots and Ruin kept me on my toes trying to like figure out what's going on. House of Earth and Blood, oh, I'm gonna mess those 2 up. House of Earth and Blood didn't keep me on my toes because I didn't really care what was going on, but it like emotionally kept me on edge. And then this one, I would say, would just be like vibe-wise. Like, I liked the overall story, but I wouldn't say it was super action-packed in the third one. I'd say the first 2 probably had more. The second one, I'm just thinking of like one of the big battle scenes. Iconic. Oh, I have to do a whole video for these 3 because, I want to spoil some stuff, but I will give spoiler alerts on that, don't worry. But I don't know anybody who has read this series, so if you have read it, please message me and let me know so that we can talk about it, because I have so many thoughts and opinions on them. Okay, the next book is very similar, and it's A Deal with the Elf King. This one I have seen on the platforms, not quite a bit, but off and on. And I did actually own this one. I found it used, I was really pumped. I already resold it. It was not for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but that was only because I finished it on audio, because my library had it on the audio and I was tired and bored of reading the book. And the guy that voiced the character in the audiobook brought him so much life and character that I was like, okay, this isn't bad. But before the audiobook, oh, I was just bored. I was just bored. Like, you could not get more of like a wet cardboard character than that man. And I did not preheat the oven again. Cooking is not my forte. But anyways, a deal with the Elf King is you got elves again, but they're very fae-esque, and you've got this girl in this human village. Think like medieval times-esque, but small village. And she's a healer, and she's been trained as a healer, and she takes her duty really seriously, and I did respect that of her. And her village knows that they're right on like the brink of the wall with the elves, and every 100 years, the elf comes and takes the human queen. Of course, 100 years is up, but nobody knows this time around who the human queen is, when normally it's very clear because she has powers. No one knows, no one knows. So the elf king gets there and he's like, obviously it's you. And she's like, no, I'm a healer. I didn't know. So she's brought in to the elf kingdom. Normally you would get like a lot of training as the human queen and you have a lot of advance notice, and she didn't. So she just felt very confused and like she was betraying people back home because she wasn't like doing her duty as a healer, and she had like people relying on her for their illnesses and their conditions. So she really wanted to end this tradition of the human queen. And again, the king was wet cardboard, so he didn't care about anything. And he was like, yeah, okay, if you can, do it. Sure. And yeah, she just kind of goes from there. It is like a fantasy romance, so I should like the male interest more. And honestly, the whole story I just felt was like very flat, like it was trying to be more than it was. I didn't enjoy it. I found it really boring. Yeah, it was like decent, like it has a decent premise, but wasn't for me. Wasn't for me at all. So although I was excited to have that on my shelf and I wanted it in my wrap up, I filmed my wrap up too late and I forgot that I had actually posted that for sale. So I had a big book sale. Well, not big, but I sold like 10 of my books 4 or 5 days ago. And yeah, that was one of them. So it's gone. I needed money. I'm sorry. You don't get it in the video, but I did have it. You'll see it in a book haul. But speaking of book hauls, I got this recently, Assistant to the Villain. We love that I own this. This is big on the book platforms. I've kept seeing it everywhere. It just sounded so fun. It's like a workplace rom-com, except she's the assistant and he's the villain. Basically, you're in like medieval fantasy vibes, and this girl is like, oh, I just got fired from my job. I really need a job. And in the woods, she runs into the villain. And then they start running from people that are hunting the villain, and she's caught up in it. And then he's like, oh, you need a job? I need an assistant. Come work for me. And then she was like, well, bills to pay. And then she did. So very much Grumpy Sunshine, very much boss, employee, workplace romance, all of that fun stuff. That's all it is. Like that's all it is. So it gives very much like cozy fantasy vibes. It's not that deep, not that serious. It's just a fun time. I really did enjoy this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I would have probably given it 5 stars, except the story had no conclusion because this is a series and I hate that. I hate that. This should have been just like a cute, cozy standalone. I would be okay with like the world and then you follow different characters and other ones. I don't want to follow these 2 characters through another book. I don't care about them that much. The relationship between them, I didn't really care for at all. I just really liked the setup and the vibes. Okay, that was all I was here for. So I probably wouldn't continue the series. And I was really disappointed because I was kind of, getting through it. And I was like, oh, like we're wrapping up. This is great. And then it was like, bam, cliffhanger. No, we're not. And I was like, this is not what I want. This is not what I want. And it changes the whole dynamic because now I just feel like it's taking itself more seriously than it is. And I don't like that. So I would say read this if you want like a night off, if you just want the vibes, if you don't want to think that hard, you just want to smile. Read this and ignore the last 4 pages, I think, and then treat it as a standalone and be happy. That's how I'm gonna mentally picture it in my head. But that's really all I have for fantasy romance. So now moving into YA, I read Hush Hush, which I also used to have on my shelf. But I ended up reading this one because it was one that I'd gotten in a book haul. I actually got the whole series of 4, and I was just like, oh, like Fallen Angels, fun time. Like it'll be a nice like palette cleanser for me. So I was like, okay, perfect. So I picked it up. Oh, did I hate it? Oh, did I hate it? And granted, this is YA aged, but at like 2009, I can do YA. I love YA. I hated it now. I would have hated it as a child as well, okay? Premise. We'll get into the premise before my thoughts. Basically, you have this boring, I need a different adjective than a wet cardboard character, but literally like a dry sponge. A dry, crusty sponge that needs to be washed. That's our main girl. And then she starts getting these like serious red flags, weird vibes from this dude. And she goes, you know what? It's kind of cute that he scares me. But not in like a dark romance way, in like a YA angst way. Very different vibes. I can't do it. But anyways, he was just like, I'm obsessed with you, but I might want to kill you. And she was just like, hot. And yeah. Then the story unfolds. There's not even really a story there. It's just a bunch of weird stuff is happening around her and giving her like really like sketchy like butterflies, but not like love butterflies, like danger, run away, flee butterflies. And she goes, I'm not gonna question why these two super attractive, mysterious, popular guys are so interested in me, even though I suck as a person. Well, she doesn't suck as a person. She's just very boring, very blah. She's actually not a person. She's got no personality, no traits, no nothing. Again, stiff, crusty sponge. Doesn't question these things. So, yeah. But I guess if you're looking for a Twilight-esque, and I'm not saying that to hate on Twilight, okay? I had my Twilight era too. Just don't tell anybody. But the same creepy, scary stalker vibes of Edward, except like not tenfold, maybe like twofold. And, you know, even a more bland character than Bella. Because at the very least, Bella was new. The very bare minimum, she was new. So in a small town, I understand how that attracts some attention. This girl was not new. This girl had been here forever. So if you're wanting those Twilight vibes without rereading Twilight, maybe this is for you. I did own the whole series. I have no intention of ever touching it again. I have no intention of ever talking about it again. I have no intention of ever thinking about it again. After I decided I still wanted those like YA vibes, and I wanted like a quick read, and I was into my werewolf phase, and something else I got from a book haul recently is Shiver. So I did get actually the whole trilogy, but again, I think this was actually written in 2009 as well. I think they're both 2009. Back to the book. I didn't mind it. It is very much a product of the time. Again, you have the insta love. This had like a little bit more to it, I guess. But essentially you have this girl, and when she was young, she got basically mauled by the wolves in her backyard. And ever since, she has had an obsession with them. Like, she watches them. She goes out with her friend to like take pictures of them. And there's like this one wolf specifically that like lives in her head. Now, she's in high school because it's YA. And you also meet this guy, and he's a werewolf. But this is really cool premise for a werewolf because it's brought on by temperature. So whenever the temperature gets too low, they change into the werewolves, and then they're wolves for the entire like winter season. And every year it takes them a little longer to change back, and then eventually they just don't. They just stay wolves forever. So kind of like that was just a really cool premise for me, and I think that's what did it for me in this book, was just I found that really original and I liked it. The characters themselves I didn't really like attach to or care for, but again, it is very much that like 2009, not much the character, very much insta love, all those vibes. So if you liked those at the time, I would actually recommend this one. And I didn't mind reading it, and I kind of had fun in some points, and again, I really did like the originality to it. There was just no depth for me, and I have no desire to finish the rest of the series. So I did post these to sell, but far later into the month than the other ones, so I don't expect this to be on my shelf much longer. But this one I actually would recommend if you do like those vibes and you're like into that. Even if you're into that, I don't recommend Hush Hush. No, I said I wasn't going to talk about it again, but I don't recommend that one. I just think all around that's a no-go. If you like those like 2009 insta-love vibes, I would recommend this one. I do think you'd have fun with this one. Okay, now we're going to bridge between fantasy and contemporary with a fantasy contemporary. I don't really know where to put this one. I could give it its like own category, but I just don't want to. So I read a Valentine's Day novella. I was really excited for it. It got released new this year, and it was written by Sarah Blue, who wrote Omega's Obsession, which I've been talking about quite a bit. So I wanted to check it out. I did actually pull this one off of a recommendation video from Books with Samantha. If you're ever looking for novellas, she's usually like the first creator I go to. She has so many videos out there about specific things and so many novella recs. I love it. But anyways, I didn't love it. In defense of her, she put it on a TBR, I think is where I saw it. So she wasn't recommending it herself. I don't know how she actually feels about the book or if she's read it now. It was on her February TBR and I was like, oh, how interesting. Let me pick it up. Yeah, it is a novella, so it was insta-love. I didn't know that going in. It just fell flat, but I liked the premise. So essentially, like, Valentine's Day is approaching and our main girl, she's a Cupid. So they're all like beings, you know? Beings. So she's a Cupid. So she's entirely pink. Pink skin, pink, 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 pink. Her name is Love, because very, very original. And she goes around shooting people with lust arrows, shooting people with love arrows, living her life, being super chipper, super positive, super happy. And we find out that her boyfriend or her ex dumped her right before the Valentine's Day parade or like ball. Like, how dare he? How dare he leave her hanging during the biggest Cupid event of the year? So she's really mad, and he's like kind of high up there. And she was like, how dare you embarrass me like this? Like, he's bringing his new girlfriend. She's like, this is awful. No, I can't be showing up at this ball, and I'm not gonna go alone. But all the Cupids already have dates, so she's like, I gotta go and talk to like other mythical beings. And she ends up going to find herself a Reaper, because what else goes better with love? So she goes and she finds herself a Reaper, and she goes, hey, help me get my petty revenge. And he goes, sure. I don't know what it was about it, but I was not interested. I was in moods that like I wanted to be reading novellas. Like, the mood really did fit. Just like actually holding like my Kindle in my hand, I was like, I don't care about a single word on this page. I could not connect to any of it. I wasn't invested in the story. I wasn't having like a fun time. Honestly, it just wasn't for me. So I gave it a 3 because I don't really have anything against it. I just don't care about it at all. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing that made me angry. I just didn't care about it. So 3 stars in the middle. Take that as you will. I probably wouldn't recommend it out of the gate. There's definitely better novellas out there. I don't really have any Valentine's Day novellas if you were looking for something that specifically, but I wouldn't recommend that one. Okay, I got tired of standing, so I guess we're just going back to the floating head video, just with a better backdrop. I also didn't realize that you could see my Joker poster over there the whole time. But anyways, yeah, I got 2 of them. I stand by them. I think they're really fun. It is what it is. Okay, but back into the books. So now straight into the contemporaries. I read another one off of my most anticipated reads list. Again, killing that one. But this was The Darkest Corner of the Heart. I don't know why I can never remember that title, but I have to read it every single time. I have to pause and read it and then come up and say it. But that's how I feel about the book too. So I was super excited for this one. I think I only had 2 or 3 contemporary reads on my most anticipated list. And yeah, it was a bit of a flop for me. So this one technically is a second in the series, but like House of Salt and Sorrows, you can read them as standalones, and they do take place years apart, like 13, 17 years. I think this one's 17 years apart. But essentially, you follow this little girl that you were introduced to in the first one, and she was like 4, and she was from a really neglectful household. And then now you follow her post-university, and she was about to be a professional dancer, and she seriously hurt her ankle. So kind of her career is down the drain, her hope and like her happiness is down the drain. And it's just kind of her in this really depressive state. And then she goes to physiotherapy, and she's like, ooh, my physiotherapist is so hot. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry? Like, I'm sorry? So we'll come back to my thoughts on it. But anyway, she's attracted to her physiotherapist, and he's obviously attracted to her, and then it's their love story from there. So there is an age gap of like 10 years, and he does start off as like her doctor. So there is like some taboo elements there. I didn't like it. Again, it was a book I never should have picked up because I was just excited to read it, like, because I read the first one in September and I heard this one was coming out, and I really, really enjoyed the first one. So I was excited to see more from the author. I, however, have been going to physiotherapy for 6 months, and I can tell you it's the last thing I want to read about. Okay, it already sucks for me to go. I don't want to hear about a character and how much it sucks for her to go. I don't want to hear about like her random, like, it was too close to my life that every little thing I was like, this is unreasonable. Like, your whole career is, this I can't relate to. Okay, this is just my opinion. My injury is not that severe. But for her, I was like, your whole career is down the drain. And yet somehow you have like the mental capacity to realize someone is hot and to develop a crush. I can't see it. If you took the sport away from me or the career away from me that I'd been working for my entire life and it was gone in an instant, I would not be seeing anybody, okay? Nobody. I wouldn't even be able to register that there were people in front of my face, let alone that he had like a deep, sultry voice. No! She was obviously like very depressed and everything with the loss of her career, but I don't see a romance coming out of this stage of her life. Like, I really don't. And yeah, I didn't care. And the book was like just a little too depressive and like annoying. Like, they were well developed. Not really. She was like a well developed character, I think, like, especially for her age and like her experience. Like, I thought she was represented well. I thought it was written well. I just don't think it was a book for me. Either I was bored or I was irritated throughout the whole thing. Okay, now moving into some good ones. So I picked up Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. And this was my first Ali Hazelwood book. And I don't know how I picked it up. Well, I know how. I got it from the library. But I don't know, like, why. Those are not done. But yeah, I don't know if I had a hold on it and then the hold came up, or if it was on one of my like instant available. Like, I honestly truly don't know how I stumbled into this book, which is very weird for me because I normally always know. But at the same time, I'm so glad that I did, because this one was so fun and so cute. So this isn't like an adult, like, it is a contemporary romance, but it is YA, so no spice and like very limited everything like that. But it was actually like adorable, and if you liked the TV show The Queen's Gambit, I think you would like this. Like, they're very similar. It's just The Queen's Gambit has a little more adult themes happening kind of in it. But this one, you have our main girl. She just graduated high school, so most of her friends are going off to university, but she doesn't think her family can afford it, so she's kind of just working and trying to keep the family afloat. She gets pushed into this chess tournament, and in this chess tournament, she ends up facing off against the best chess player in the world, because he's doing it as like a promo thing. And then through that, she gets like offered a chess scholarship. And she was like, no, like, I hate chess. Like, she has a background with chess. Okay, don't worry about it. She has a background with it. It wasn't like she stumbled and this was her first game. But she was like, no, like, I hate chess. I'm not going back. And they're like, we will pay you all this money. And she was like, what? I could put that towards, like, my family needs that money. Like, okay, I will do this like chess internship thing. So she begins that. And of course the romance is with her rival chess player, the best chess player in the world, the one that kind of started it all. It's really just her having to deal and process some like historical events that have occurred in her life and overcome like severe commitment issues. And he's just kind of there. There's not a lot of character development for him, to be honest, but he was cute and he was a sweetheart and I loved them together, and it just, I loved reading it. I say not too bad. They're very fluffy. less fluffy, but still. But this kind of launched me into an Ali Hazelwood spiral where that's all I wanted to read. And truly, I think the universe gods were looking out for me, because every time I went for my next Ali Hazelwood book, it was available, and yet every other Ali Hazelwood book had a hold on it. Explain that one to me. Explain that one to me. I don't know, but I loved it. I'll accept it. So the next one I read was The Love Hypothesis. The main girl is in her PhD, I think. And that held no appeal, again, because I don't usually gravitate towards the university setting, but I was like, Ali Hazelwood, if she wrote it, I'm gonna read it. So I picked it up, and she gets herself in a situation where she needs a fake boyfriend, but like immediately. Like, I'm talking about like in the next 2 seconds immediately. So she ends up planting one on this professor from like an adjoining department. So it's not technically like her supervisor, but they work in the same field. So it's like gray area on like propriety. Then she's like embarrassed, and she was like, okay, like thanks for that. Like, so sorry to put you in that like situation. And he was like, well, I guess we better just sell it at this point. So then they start a fake relationship. And it's just like their relationship as she finishes her doctorate, and he kind of like, I don't know, goes about being a grumpy guy. I did only give 3 stars. I wasn't like as enamored with it as I was Checkmate, but at the same time, it was cute. Like, it did have its moments. Like, so much of it was unbelievable, and like situations that would never occur. And again, I can put things off and like be like, oh, this is fiction. And I do have that line, but it's far easier for me to be like, oh, this is fiction, when it's not related to my life at all. Like the chess world. I know nothing about the chess world, so I can just enjoy it. The academia world, I'm just like, there would be no situation. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into it. But there's a couple situations that I would be like, no. No, this would just not occur. This would just like, okay, actually, you know what? I am gonna give you an example. And it's a pretty well-known example, because I had heard about it before I read the book, but then when I read it, I was like, I see what everyone's talking about. So essentially, they attend this lecture after they've come out in this fake relationship. Again, he's a professor, she's a PhD student, and people know they're dating, and it's like a little weird, but it's not technically against any rules because he's not her supervisor. But they're all attending this lecture, and the lecture hall gets so full. Okay, already not happening. When have you ever attended a guest lecture and the lecture hall was full? Me? Never. Never. There's always seats. They're always trying to get more people in. That's why they give you food at these things, to get more people in. But anyways, it was just so full, and it was getting more and more full, and her friend was just like, oh, your boyfriend's right there. Sit on his lap to make room for the rest of us. I was like, how full is this lecture hall that one person sitting on someone else's lap is gonna make a difference? But she was like, oh, how do I say no to this? Okay. So then she spends the whole lecture like on his lap. What? In what situation would you end up on anybody's lap for a whole lecture? That couldn't even be comfortable. The seats they give you aren't even comfortable enough for how long a lecture is. And you're sitting on someone's lap that entire time in front of like his colleagues, in front of your colleagues, in front of like everybody, and you're just chilling this whole time? You're just chilling? No. So there was like several scenes like that where I'm just like, this would not happen. But at the same time, and like some things got like really repetitive, like the size thing got really repetitive, and then it was so clear that they liked each other, and it had like moved beyond a fake relationship, but it would just got like dragged out too long. Like neither one of them wanted to say anything. And I'm like, you literally have nothing to lose, because you two couldn't be more obvious that you're attached to each other. So that, like, I like the tension of the fake dating, but there becomes a point in the story where like the characters just can't deny it anymore, and they just continue to deny it. So I didn't love that, which is why I got the 3 stars. But I really do like Ali Hazelwood's writing. Like, the vibe is very like chill and like easygoing. And I don't want to say like a fan fiction vibe, because these are like her characters, but I think in just like how chill it is, like the words she uses, the tone, the references, like it does give that like fan fiction era, and I love that. So I do really enjoy reading her writing. And I did like her analysis of women in STEM, in PhD programs, in professional fields, because you know what, it does suck, and it's definitely getting better, but I did like where the characters were coming from and what they were facing. I did like that. But yeah, so picking up the second in the series, it was called Love on the Brain. I did know that most people didn't like this one as much as The Love Hypothesis. Honestly, I didn't mind it. I thought it was very much like on par with the other one. She is a neuroscientist and he is an engineer, and they know each other from grad school, but he was like mean to her in grad school. This isn't a bully romance, but like he would avoid her, and there was a lot of rumors going on about like how much he didn't like her and like everything like that. It didn't like deeply affect her, but there was that kind of animosity there. And then she finds out that she's been put on this like new project at NASA, and she's so excited. But of course her co-lead is this guy that she knows from grad, and she's like, oh god, like I don't want to see him again, like I hate this guy, blah 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 blah. And anyway, she has to move out to wherever NASA is located. Houston. I feel like NASA is in Texas. It's been a while since I read this book, okay? So she moves out there, and then they start on this program, and he kind of hears about, you know, how she feels about him and everything that like he kind of did in grad school, how she kind of absorbed it all, and then what that means for them now, because she also has a lot of commitment issues now because she got burned by this guy she was seeing. So she's very like hesitant and very much like science is my life, all of this. And then yeah, it's just kind of like their love story, except they're not fake dating. I guess they would technically be enemies to lovers, technically, or you could I guess say like potentially like a second chance in there. It was fun. Again, the same vibes that I like of Allie Hazelwood, but nothing that I was really like Checkmate, like I really enjoyed. Love on the Brain, I was like, it's fine, it's good, like we're having a good time. So then I go and I pick up the third one, and they are physicists. It's just such a fun story to like cover costs. She's a recent grad, and she's basically got all these temporary teaching positions at different universities. I forget the word for it. But essentially, she's super poor. She can't make ends meet. So on the side, and also what put her kind of through grad school, she's a professional fake dater. She's a girlfriend you can hire, not like a prostitute, like a girlfriend you hire to impress your mom or get your grandma off your back or like show up your brother. Like you hire her, you tell her what you want her to be, you tell her how to like fit into the role, and she comes out for the night. I loved it. But anyways, so she was working and she had seen this client like 3 times at family events, and the brother was always a bit like off to her, like not in a weird way, but just like off. And then she goes for this like really competitive physics job that she really wants. And he's one of the like deciders, and he's like, you know, I've met you before. Didn't say anything about physics. Because I think she was a kindergarten teacher or whatever in this scenario. So she was like, oh my god, please don't blow my cover. Like, I want this job so bad. Like, you don't understand. And of course, the brother he can't contact to like verify. So he's like, this is super sketchy. Like, what is happening? And she's like, I need this job so bad. Like, shh, just don't say anything. Just don't say anything. And he's just confused. He's just genuinely confused and a little bit angry because he feels like she's lying to his brother. But yeah, then their love story kind of progresses from there. Of the series, this was my favorite. This was my favorite. I don't know why, but I gave this one 4 stars. I love their stories. I love their animosity. I just loved them coming together. I don't know what really set these ones apart from the other 2. I think it was just like, not that it was realistic, but the second one ended with like such heavy drama that just didn't need to be there. It was like this weird running subplot that was going on. I was like, no. But the third one, it was like the drama was fun. Not like, it was like unrealistic, not in like an irritating way, but unrealistic in a really fun way. And it just did it for me. Like this was like my favorite. And I really enjoyed it. Powered through those very quickly. As in, I had an exam. Okay, actually I had 2 exams. I had 2 exams, an assignment that was worth 50% of my semester grade, all on the same day. And the day and a half before this big, you know, stressful day, I spent reading all 4 Allie Hazelwood books. So if you're ever looking for study tips or prioritization, never come to me. Never come to me. Is this potentially why I love these books so much and found them so addictive? Because the alternative was studying for things that were really stressing me out? Very, very high potential that is why. But at the same time, I had a blast. The next contemporary romance is Caught on Camera. I hated this book, okay? I hated this book. There's a group of friends, and one of them is a professional football coach, and oftentimes the friend group goes and sits by the field and watches his games, kind of show support for him. One of the girls in the friend group, she brings a date to one of these games, and they end up on the kiss cam again and again and again. And honestly, if it was me, I would have sued the camera guy because it was unethical at that point. But anyways, her date would not kiss her, and he was just like, I hate the kiss cam, which is it's valid, okay, but he was being a dick about it. And she was getting so embarrassed, and she wanted to cry, and the crowd was going crazy. So much so that it distracted the team, and they were like, hey coach, isn't that your friend? What's going on? And then he was like, how dare you embarrass my friend like that? Runs over, kisses her on national TV. Woo! And then this whole thing starts. So yeah, they ended up fake dating as well for her career aspirations and for his family. I think they ended up fake dating through the holidays because this was a Christmas book. I hated it. It sounded like kind of a cute premise, and I thought I could get over the sports thing, which I did. That wasn't why I hated the book. I hated the book because it was nobody ever read it twice. The facts did not line up. They're like, oh, he was the youngest coach in the NFL ever, and he's only had this team for this many years. And I did the math. It would make him 42 or something when he got the team. I Googled it. The youngest NFL coach is a 30. 42 is the average age. But it was that was just a minor thing. It was just everything. The timelines just did not add up at all. And then the characters did not nearly act the age they were. This man is 44 in this book. And I think she's 36. And they're acting like they're 17. It was so irritating. So irritating. There was so much I hated about this book. Oh, I had to grab my phone to see what else I hated about it. The Perfect Men. Examples. This is one of the guy friends. I'm divorced, but I've never once had a fight with my ex, and we co-parent perfectly. I used to sleep around, but then I went to therapy to find a healthier work-life balance, which again, great, but just on top. I'm deeply connected to my family and go home every holiday. Don't live in the same city. I cry at my 18-year-old's birthday party. I tip 68% or something ridiculous like that, always. Etc, etc, etc. It wasn't a person. He wasn't a person. Why are you crying at your 18-year-old daughter's birthday party? It seems really weird. It seems really weird to me. All of it was just and these are little things, but when they were all stacked on top of each other, these men were just sickening to read about because they just weren't, it felt like they were dolls. It felt like they were these little dolls, and I didn't like it at all. Oh, and then again, it was another case of the fake dating just went on too long. And I'm just you clearly love each other. You're not making any bones about it. You're not hiding it. There's no fear of rejection. There's no reason for you to have this tension built up. There's no tension. You're just irritating at this point. I'm just grow up. You're in your 40s. Tell her you like her. Get over it. Move on. I'm sorry, but what are you doing? Didn't love that. Okay, and then speaking of, I did actually DNF the next one, but I didn't hate it. I just wasn't feeling it. I will put that as a preface. I think I only read 70% of this book. I DNF'd it pretty late, which I like because I never usually do that. But at the same time, I don't regret having done it in this case, and I would like to do it more. I was in deep on Allie Hazelwood, as I've said. And in February or maybe late January, but anyways, very recently, she released a book called Bride. And everyone was talking about it, and it was a paranormal romance, Omegaverse, vampire werewolf, marriage of convenience. And I was just obsessed with Allie Hazelwood, so I would literally read anything she put out. Also, I was oh my god, I've been on this Omegaverse kick. I thought it was a sign, and then people just kept posting about this book, and I wanted to read it so bad, and the wait on the library was 13 weeks. So I was okay, I need something to bide my time. Someone said, hey, Like, if you're looking for something like Bride, try The Fake Mate. So I did, and it was a workplace romance, and one's an alpha, one's an omega, and then they decide that, you know what, they have to fake date. For various reasons, but they're gonna fake date. It gets real spicy real fast, and then it's just like very much workplace romance, grumpy sunshine. That's all I can say about it. Like, I was just bored. I didn't feel like there was a story behind it. Like, there's nothing I really have against it. I just, like, I didn't want to pick it up. Even when I was reading it, I wanted to put it down and pick up something else. Like, I was just not enjoying it, and I was just bored all the way through, and I didn't care what happened to the characters, and I didn't really like them together, and the whole thing was just weird. So, ended up just being like 70%, you know what? Nothing's really gonna come of this book for me. So, put it down and stopped reading it. And honestly, weight off my shoulders. Okay, now it is time for the icing. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the cupcakes once I put icing on them, but that's for another day. The next contemporary I'm gonna talk about is desserts for stressed people, which is so lovely because we're making dessert right now. And we're a little bit stressed, but it's fine. This one I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was really cute. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It is a workplace romance. Man, I've read a lot of those, okay? I didn't know that was a trope I really gravitate towards, but I feel like I've said those words a lot in this video. This is just not happening well. This one, I guess, is gonna be the one I eat. I was just a mouth of icing. Honestly, not that good. Okay, I'm actually not going to put icing on them because they are falling apart. So I think and it makes it easier for me to store if they don't have icing. So I think for right now, no icing. I'll leave it in the fridge, and then whenever anybody wants one, they can just put icing on it themselves and deal with all of the mess. I'm coming back up here to finish off. So, where were we? Yes, desserts for stressed people, way better than my desserts. I have a girl, and she's really good at her job, and she's very much like type A, very detail orientated, and she's so good at her job that her boss goes, you know what, I'm gonna bump you up a couple floors. You have to help out on this one program that's so ridiculously out of your field, and then you're gonna come back down. And she's like, I don't want to do this at all. Like, can I not just keep my job here? And he's like, no, you gotta do this. So she ends up going up the couple floors, and then, you know, meets the new boss, who everyone called like really grumpy and very type A and very like, you know? And who is it but the guy she's been talking to on a dating app? So then, backing it up a little bit, she is in a relationship and she knows that her boyfriend is cheating on her. So she sets up a fake dating profile on the site that he's using to like catfish him. And she ends up having a conversation with this guy that she actually really hits it off with. And so there is like vague cheating in here, but she really is like having a blast with this guy. And then she's like, okay, well, like nothing's gonna come of it. Like, it's fine. And then he ends up being like her new, like almost boss. But she was catfishing on this profile. So nothing of the profile is her, not her pictures, not her name, like nothing is her. So she can't really bring it up or say anything about it. So she's like, this is super awkward, but then they're in these close quarters working on this like really important project, and they have a lot in common, and she knows like his softer side outside of work from the dating app. So it really is like them being able to bridge the gap, which I really thought was cute and like an interesting way to do it. Because I love like texting in books, and like, I don't know, it just adds to it for me. And I loved that she was able to see like the softer side of him first, because I don't really understand in like the grumpy sunshine boss employee dynamic how you can look at a boss who's like an utter grump and who everyone hates and who makes your life hell and be like, oh, but I bet he's a sweetheart somewhere down in that pit. No, couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. I'm not seeing potential like that. So I liked in this one that she was able to see that side first, which to me made it a lot more believable for her going into this relationship. And I really did enjoy that. So it was super cute. I did have a lot of fun with it. And then the last book I have for this list is Mother Faker. I also rated this one 4 stars. I also had so much fun with this one. And it is a series, and I cannot wait to get into the rest of them because the premise is so fun. Are you ready for this? Basically, there's 4 friends from university. Now they're like off in their lives, but they've maintained this friendship, and they realize that all 4 of them are single mothers in like different ways. Like, one's widowed, one's divorced, you know, one went into it initially as a single mother, like all of these different things. But essentially you have 4 moms, they're all single moms, and they go, we're like struggling, like we are struggling to balance getting our kids to soccer practice while paying the bills and doing it all on their own. So they're like, this is stupid, like why are we all struggling? Why don't we come together and form a mom commune, a mom comm. I love that. I love that. If you didn't get it from my repetitiveness, a mom comm. And they all move into this like old, tattered, falling down brownstone that one of them had inherited from an aunt. And they all raise like their like 7 children or something together. I love that premise. Yes, literally yes. Oh, friends are the best. And then while this is going on, you also follow our one main girl. So each of the moms is obviously going to get their own book, but our initially you follow one girl. She ends up in a fake relationship with her boss. There was a lot of fake dating, and we're another workplace romance. But her boss is like a billionaire, and he's like, I have like such terrible PR right now because they think he like kicked a kid or something. He's like, I don't hate children. She's like, I worked with you for like a decade. You do hate children. And he's like, no, I don't. And for his like betterment of his PR, he fakes a relationship with a single mom. And he's like, who better to be this like fake single mom than you, who's worked with me for 10 years? She's like, you're joking. And he's like, okay, if you fake date me, I will like put money into helping you restore this falling down, you know, brownstone. And she's like, this is a health hazard, so fine, sure. This is what we'll put the money towards. And then it's like him not only falling in love with her, but like falling in love with like her kids and her friends and her friends' kids, and like just him having to approach the brownstone at all. Like that would be so intimidating. So intimidating. Could not be me, but like I loved it. It was so cute. It was such a fun premise. So cute, so fun. And then like I felt like he was like more developed, not super developed, but more developed, and I did love his backstory. And then he gives all the kids nicknames, and then when you find out why, like you just melt. And I just, it was so cute, so cute. And I definitely will be continuing the series. Love. But it's definitely one that I'm gonna have to like spread out. Because I feel like they're going to get very repetitive, you know? I feel like there's only so many dynamics you can do. I do really look forward to getting into it. This took far too long, and my cupcakes did not turn out good, and I'm very upset with it. But it's fine, I guess. Whatever. That was what I read in February. So 20 books, 6 physicals, not too bad, but 2 of them were already sold by the time I filmed this video. And this is what I ran into when I looked at my 2023 goals. If I don't like a book, I'm going to get rid of it. So I didn't have a percentage of how many of the books I'd read from starting in January to the end to like see if I met that goal. Like I'm always gonna have more books that I haven't read on my shelf than books that I have, because if I don't like it, it's making room for other books. Please leave a comment down below if you have read Bow Before the Elf Queen series, because I'm dying to talk to people about it. So let me know down in the comments. But that is all I got for you guys today. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I post videos every Saturday and shorts throughout the week, so ring that bell for notifications and you won't miss anything. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye! This video is going to be up late. I already know that because I was going to film it earlier and then edit it while I had some time tonight. And obviously that wasn't able to happen due to some unforeseen circumstances and a group project that shall not be named. And then tomorrow I am in a conference all day that they also just sprung on us 2 days ago. Very hard to plan when they keep springing stuff on us. I will not be able to edit until late. So this video honestly might either be a late Saturday night or early Sunday morning. I don't know. It's a whirlwind right now. I appreciate your guys' patience. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.